Hello and welcome to the lunchtime news from the calendar team on Friday, June the 25th. The headlines: cargo of horses impounded by police on Hull docks. The man who's applied for 1,000 jobs in 2 months. And the children who've got designs on the Royal Armouries. But we start with the news that the police have seized a cargo of ponies on Hull docks. An investigation is now underway by the Ministry of Agriculture. It centres on documentation which prevents the sale of horses for meat.
Impounded on Humberside today, these horses are at the centre of a major inquiry by Ministry of Agriculture investigators. The 35 ponies were destined for export to Holland after being bought earlier this week at an auction in Nottinghamshire. They were being carried by this lorry and were within minutes of leaving Britain when the North Sea ferry on which they were to sail for Rotterdam was boarded by police and vets last night. The inquiry centres on documents which ensure exported horses are too expensive to sell for meat.
They did not have the correct documentation, and if people are going to come over to England and export horses, then it is their responsibility to make sure that they do it right. We don't want our horses to go out for slaughter. It's as simple as that.
The Dutch owners of the horses deny any suggestion they were intended for slaughter. The lorry driver was refusing to comment today, but a man working for the buyers insisted they were destined for good homes.
For sale in Belgium and Holland.
For what purpose?
Children. I pay enough for the horses.
The RSPCA say they believe the buyers, but the inquiry continues. The Ministry of Agriculture is refusing to comment on its investigation, but the seriousness with which this case is being treated is seen as an indication of the Ministry's determination to stop British horses being exported for meat.
New figures released today show that this region has been badly hit by local authority job losses. Humberside County Council has suffered the biggest losses in the country with almost 1,500 jobs going. Sheffield was third with 1,100 and Bradford was 7th with over 400 redundancies. Meanwhile, a clerk who was made redundant has been speaking about his desperate search for work. He's applied for 1,000 jobs since February.
Paul Waddingham from Dalton in Rotherham has been unemployed for 6 months. He's only 28, but he was made redundant at Christmas from his job as an office clerk. But he's never given up looking for another job. He's written over 1,000 job applications.
I've wrote to different companies, councils, local authorities, tax offices, electricity boards, private companies, and as yet I haven't had any luck. I've got plenty of replies, but I've not had any luck so far.
He's got files full of replies, but with the unemployment rate in Rotherham running at over 15%, he's still looking for work in administration. I
enjoy getting up in the mornings, opening all my mail and thinking and hoping that there's something in there, and I still get quite a buzz out of that, because I can get up to 20 letters a day back.
Today's post has brought the possibility of another interview. But with Paul's experience over the last few months, he knows that's no guarantee. And he's still working hard looking for other vacancies, just in case. It's a job in itself.
A 19-year-old woman has been found dead with stab wounds at a house in South Yorkshire. Police were called to a house in Radburn Road at Rosington near Doncaster late last night by a relative. The body of the woman, who's been named as Sarah Ann Smith, was found in the kitchen. A 25-year-old man is now being interviewed by detectives in connection with the incident. The jury at the trial of kidnapper Michael Sams has been told the hearing might not last as long as was originally expected. This morning, the prosecution have been putting forward detailed forensic evidence, which they claim links 51-year-old Sams to kidnap, murder and blackmail. From the court, Chris Kiddie reports.
The trial at Nottingham Crown Court is now in its 13th day. Today, the judge, Mr. Justice Judge, told the jury the hearing would probably last 6 weeks rather than 8. The jury heard from 2 forensic scientists who'd examined lengths of window sash cord. One length Sams admits using to help pull down the ransom money for Stephanie Slater to him under a disused rail bridge in South Yorkshire. The other length was found under a bridge in Staffordshire. The Crown say that was part of a plan to blackmail British Rail. One expert said he couldn't distinguish between the 2 lengths of cord. Sams denies blackmailing British Rail by threatening to derail a high-speed train unless he was paid £200,000. He admits kidnapping Birmingham estate agent Stephanie Slater, but denies kidnapping and murdering Leeds teenager Julie Dart. The hearing is continuing.
Yorkshire electricity shares have risen this morning following the publication of the company's results for this financial year. The company announced a pre-tax profit of more than £156 million, an increase of just over 14 million on last year. The result is in line with predictions by financial experts. A store manager has been exposed as the mastermind behind 2 robberies which fleeced his company of more than £4,000. In the first robbery, an employee was kidnapped. The same worker was tied up and robbed just weeks later.
2 men were waiting in a car park at the Meadow Hall complex when an assistant from the Microbite store took nearly £3,000 to the bank. They grabbed him, tied him up, and then drove him to a multi-storey car park in Rotherham. Police questioned Meadow Hall shoppers about the robbery without success. 2 months later, one of the raiders struck again, tying the same assistant up in the shop and stealing £1,700. But eventually the police discovered the Microbite shop manager Gary Ridsdale was the mastermind behind both robberies. The trail to Ridsdale hotted up after the second robbery. The assistant, who'd been tied up in the shop, managed to raise the alarm, and Meadow Hall security staff grabbed the robber in a nearby car park. Ridsdale and his 2 accomplices, Martin Kershaw and Stephen Rawling, have now been found guilty of robbery. Ridsdale pretended to know nothing about the first raid and even agreed to be interviewed by Callender about the effect the kidnap had had on his colleague.
He's very upset. He spent a lot of time with the police and he's also been to the hospital. I'm just hoping that we can do something to catch them and to make sure it doesn't happen again in the centre or anywhere else.
In a few weeks' time at Sheffield Crown Court, all 3 men will be sentenced for their crimes.
It's 3 years yet before the Royal Armouries brings its magnificent collection of weapons and armour to Leeds, but already local school children have been preparing for the museum's opening. They're asked to draw up plans for what they'd like to see in the museum.
I'm a museum object. I'm a piece of armour and I don't get looked at much. It's very boring. I wish I could hop off and get out of here. It was best when I was charging up and down, sat on horseback.
It was the imagination of pupils at Carlton and Snaith School near Goole which put them among the top prize winners in the Royal Armouries Challenge. School children were asked for their ideas to make the Royal Armouries a success when it moved to Leeds in 1996. At Carlton and Snaith, they made their own recycled suit of armour for the 1990s.
We made him out of cans and baked bean tins and things. And we asked around school, all the classes, if the children could bring cans in.
More than 40 schools took part in the competition. With hundreds of drawings, surveys and essays to look at, the judges had a difficult job.
We were particularly impressed by the high level of creativity, original thought, and the ways in which they tackled problems with practical solutions.
In the end, 6 schools were judged the best, and when the Royal Armouries opens its doors in Leeds on April the 16th, 1996, perhaps Carlton and Snaith School's Tin Can Man will take his place alongside more conventional suits of armour.
I'm sure he will. Cricket now, and the latest from day 2 of the championship matches at Headingley. Yorkshire are still looking for their first wicket of the day, Kent to 96 without loss. At Derby, Lancashire were finally dismissed for 477, and Derbyshire are 21 for no wicket in reply. And at Swansea, in reply to Glamorgan's total of 329, Nottinghamshire are 29 without loss. Finally, boxing, and contracts will be signed this very evening for the first ever All-Yorkshire World title fight. It'll be between the WBF Cruiserweight champion Johnny Nelson from Sheffield and the veteran Tom Collins from Leeds. It'll be staged at Mansfield Leisure Centre in August, and tonight on Calendar we'll have the full details, and we'll be talking exclusively to both men and their managers as they sign on the dotted line. Next headlines at 3:15. Bye-bye.
It'll be dry this afternoon across the whole region with quite a lot of cloud around, but some of the clouds should be thin enough to allow a little hazy sunshine. Temperatures reaching around 19 Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit, and with just light winds it should feel fairly pleasant. This evening the cloud will gradually thicken up, and during the night we'll find rain spreading down from the northwest. So most parts of the region are likely to have some rain by the end of the night, the rain heaviest in the north and over the Pennines, where there'll also be a good deal of hill fog. Temperatures tonight falling no lower than 10 Celsius, 50 Fahrenheit, but also becoming quite windy as the southwesterly picks up. So this afternoon's summary, dry with some hazy sun.